Today, I'm joined by Alex Kang. He's doing big things down in LA. He's a hotel investor and also buying small businesses.
I've had multiple different roles. Did find my partner through the community group that we are all part of. You have a like-minded individual that are trying to get to the same places. From that perspective, it checks up a lot of boxes. It screens a lot of them, right? Instead of finding someone that you never met randomly on the street, right?
I know the brokers for the commercial side can be a little bit more intimidating maybe than the real estate agents on the residential side. So what do those conversations look like in the beginning?
They want to know that whether you can actually close a deal. Do you have what it takes to be able to transact the deal? Is really all they care about.
So I was in a place right now where I was only able to partner with someone who didn't really have any experience like owning multiple hotels. Do you think that us owning maybe a few short-term rentals, is that something that would be good enough? Or do you think you really have to sign on with someone who has a lot of experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think...
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Lowdown. Today, I'm joined by Alex Kang. He is doing big things down in LA. He's a hotel investor and also buying small businesses. So I'm super excited to dive into everything that you're doing. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure. So before we get started into your background and everything, what are you doing right now?
Sure. So I currently own and operate a boutique hotel up in Solvang, California, near Santa Barbara, with a few other partners that I met through the same group that we are part of. Currently actively prospecting for a small business acquisition opportunities, mostly in the trade businesses. So we can go into that a little bit more detail. And then I also have a few kind of short-term rentals and mid-term rentals sprinkled through San Diego and LA.
Got it. Okay. So you're doing a little bit of everything. So what was the first thing that you dove into? Was it like short-term rentals? Was it another strategy? What was the first thing that you decided to do?
Yeah. So I've always had my W-2. I worked in corporate for the last 14, 15 years, starting 2010. I've had, multiple different roles. I started my career as a CPA, got my MBA at UCLA. That's how I moved from Montreal to LA. I've always had a career going to CPA, from CPA, MBA to going to management consulting. And then my latest W-2 was working in a software space, working in corporate strategy. That's always been my full time. And how I got started in real estate was, I think I started investing in real estate through, some other syndications that other folks have done as a limited partner a couple times in a multifamily really around LA. And then really the first time I started working on my active real estate was really just to buying my primary home and then converting my garage into an ADU. So that was really my first real estate project. I have a long-term tenant in there now, so that's creating, that's generating some monthly cash flow. And then after that, I really wanted to, go deeper into real estate other than, what I have now. That was a couple years ago in 2023. Short-term rentals were, I think it was booming really, it was getting really hot. And then I think the Airbnb arbitrage model was getting really popular. So I kind of jumped on that bandwagon. I started a couple Airbnbs down in San Diego, more specifically in Oceanside. So I'm currently operating one of them. I did sell the other one that I opened 2 years ago. It's creating another nice form of steady cash flow on a monthly basis. And then really last year was the big kind of a project that I did, which was going back to the Solvang hotel deal that I did with a couple other partners. And that took about a year, kind of end to end, from deciding to get into the hotel space to closing of the hotel. And currently we're renovating and we're operating as we go. That kind of looks like, and then I picked a couple kind of midterm rental services along the way, mostly through friends and family. So that kind of is the combination of the real estate I do have right now and manage. Again, small business, and I also am opening up a couple franchise businesses that is unrelated to small business and small business acquisition and real estate. I'm just kind of trying to diversify my portfolio across different areas.
Got it. Well, that's amazing. It's definitely a huge jump going from short-term rentals to hotels. So what was the thing that made you want to go from short-term rentals to hotels? Because that's a whole different ball game.
It is and it is not at the same time. I think short term rental. And at that time, really the big thing for me was scalability, right? So I can do one short term rental, and really to get into true game of short term rental and really truly get the benefit of the taxes and all the real estate wealth building it can bring. I do think that you need to own your own property, whereas I was doing arbitrage. Arbitrage was purely on a making a cash flow. The purpose of that play was purely cash flow. So in order for me to buy the next short term rental and continue to scale, it just felt like I can maybe buy one house every, I don't know, 6 to 12 months. Maybe not in LA because it's really expensive. Maybe some other areas other than Southern California. And that meant like buying 10 Airbnbs could have taken me somewhere between 2 to 5 years, or maybe even 10 years, right? So that took that just didn't I didn't feel like I can scale fast enough to be able to get there. Whereas if you buy a hotel, again, our hotel is a 24 unit. In a sense, you have 24 units of short-term rental slash Airbnb under one roof, under one management, under one team of vendors that are managing the property. It's a one tax return, it's one CPA, it's one of everything, while you're still getting the benefit of operating 24 unit or 24 really Airbnbs. And that really meant that I'm able to not only get scale from my time perspective, but also from my resource perspective. And then there is also a very good, better, easier path for me to buy next hotel and kind of replicate the playbook versus having to add another portfolio of Airbnb or single family home Airbnb one at a time.
hmm Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of people, when they first get started and everything, they don't really think about the scalability, but it totally makes sense that it's a lot easier to do when everything's under one roof, having one property management and being able to do like one big renovation, having one GC versus doing 10 different projects. It sounds like definitely a lot more work. So I want to get really into the thick of everything. How exactly did you buy a hotel? I know you mentioned you had some partners. How did you find those partners? Because I think finding partners is really really challenging, especially trying to find someone who can trust and do all these things with. So maybe we could first start with how did you find your partners?
Yeah. I mean, short answer is I did find my partner through the community group that we are all part of. And it was a hotel mastermind group. These groups are great because you have a like-minded individual that are trying to get to the same places. So, the outcome and what we're trying to do, objectives, everything is, it may not be 100% aligned, but you're, 80, 90% there in terms of, everyone's trying to buy the next hotel. Everyone's, trying to be successful. Everyone's hustling. So, from that perspective, it checks up a lot of boxes. It screens a lot of them, right? Instead of finding someone that you've never met randomly on the street, right? And then from there, we did have kind of a couple months of kind of trial period, if you will. So we said, hey, like let's start working together, prospect, and then look for a hotel to buy together. But at that point, we weren't necessarily committed to each other in a sense like, okay, kind of let's test the water because it's a long-term relationship you're getting into, right? So our whole period for the hotel is going to be somewhere between 5 to 7 years, or even longer than that. So it's a longer term relationship you're getting into. So you want to really make sure that you're doing, you have the conversation around, how you think about the strategy. Does your timeline align with what you're trying to do? Is your objective align what you're doing? Does your working style match with what you're trying to do? Do they complement you? Do you see, are you comfortable working with the person, and do you see working with the person longer term? So, after those periods of time, you don't have to find the perfect team to start. You just need to figure out what you need next to be able to get to from where you are to the next milestone. And at that point, when I first started, was hey, we really need a better deal flow. So I found a couple other partners who can get together every morning. I think we did like 7 to 8:30 every morning, just calling brokers, going through LoopNet, online, reaching out to brokers, And really, that's all we focused on, and underwriting, all that kind of stuff. And then afterwards, realized that we need a partner who can help with some capital. We need a partner who can help with the kind of operations aspect. So I sought out to a couple other partners who could fill the gaps in terms of our ability to run and operate, and hopefully one day successfully exit the property. So just piece by piece, I was able to find the right person at the right time. And it's been working out really well. Everyone's really complementing each other. The working relationship has been great. We are all going to one of the partners' wedding in Costa Rica in actually 3 weeks or so. So
Nice.
that's a testament to us just kind of really enjoying working with each other and enjoying each other's company.
Yeah. One thing I really love that you said is that you focused on the first step that'll get you closer to that goal, because I think in the beginning when you first get started, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by thinking about all the different steps that you have to do, the acquisition, what are you going to do to finance it, what are you going to do to renovate it, all this different stuff. But if you don't even find the first deal, none of that other stuff matters.
Hmm.
And so I think it's very,
Agreed.
very important, like you said, to just focus on that first step. Okay, so you find a partner, a few others, and you start talking to brokers. What do those conversations look like with those brokers specifically? Because I know it can be, I know the brokers for the commercial side can be a little bit more intimidating, maybe, than the real estate agents on the
Yeah.
residential side. So, what do those conversations look like in the beginning?
Yeah, it definitely takes reps. It definitely takes some training to get used to. You kind of have to do some selling yourself too, right? Like you want to come across as someone who know what they're talking about. And obviously, the first conversation wasn't it, but that takes practice. That's why the community was great in terms of everyone's providing feedback in terms of what the talk script look like. What should I be saying? What should not be saying? What are some of the assets I should have? So some of the things that I first got started on was creating a company. Even though having alex@gmail.com um, is not as professional as alex@company.com, right? So
Hmm.
having like small things like that, having a logo, having a good website that because broker will look you up. If you tell them, hey, I'm looking and I'm coming from Primers Investment, which is the name of my company. So having all of these things available online, I think, as instant credibility. But then you really have to understand what the brokers are looking for from someone like me, who's trying to, from the buyer perspective. They want to know that whether you can actually close a deal. Do you have what it takes to be able to transact the deal? Is really all they care about. So there, I think again, like the partnership conversation comes in. Like if we don't have anyone on the team who comes from no hospitality background, that's going to be a lot more challenging conversation. Not to say it cannot be done, but if that is going to be the main thing that the broker is going to have in the back of their head, then you have to think about what other stories do you have that you can spin to be able to sell yourself to, get it under LOI, get it under contract, be able to do the due diligence. But it's a really at the end of the day numbers game. I think
Hmm.
we called collectively, me and two other business partner were in the very beginning, the trenches together. I think we in our broker CRM we have 6, 7, 800 something like that on our CRM. And it's really you just have to be at the right time at the right place. So our hotel, as an example, just pure log again, like a pure numbers game, calls this broker. They happen to have this off market deal that they were looking for the qualified buyer, and that was 2023 October, and we were able to close the deal in April of 2024.
Nice. That's amazing. So, do you think? I know you said that obviously they care about you being able to close the deal. So, in the beginning, when it was maybe you and the first partner who didn't have a ton of experience with the hotels, do you think it made a huge difference once you actually got the other partner on who has multiple hotels? Or, I mean, just saying, like, if I was in a place right now where I was only able to partner with someone who didn't really have any experience, like um, owning multiple hotels, do you think that us owning maybe a few short-term rentals, is that something that would be good enough, or do you think you really have to sign on with someone who has a lot of experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think owning a short-term rental and coming from some real estate background is definitely helpful. Commercial real estate in general and the hospitality asset class in general, I think are viewed as a lot more complex, and it has a lot more it has a lot more complexity to it than buying a single family home through a residential house. So that does also mean that you're going to need a lot more different types of expertise coming into the deal. So, I don't want to say that if you don't have any hospitality partner with hospitality background, you can't buy a hotel. That is not true at all. But that does mean that you're going to have to figure out what other stories you may have that you can relate to hospitality. Maybe you're in a customer experience, maybe you're in a customer service, maybe you've done some hospitality work in the past, whether it be working at a restaurant or working at a hotel, like whatever the case may be, to be able to package that all together and like sell. Like at the end of the day, you're selling your stuff in the beginning of the conversation. I
Hmm.
hear that I'm hoping to get there at some point. Once you build your reputation, then the brokerage will start to come to you. And then, it's really then, the relationship, shifts a little bit. But in my first case, and everyone who's starting from the beginning, it's really, it's up to you to sell yourself and get the broker comfortable with it. And again, like having someone with the background helped immensely. I don't think that was 100% necessity that if you're black and white, if you don't have someone like that, you're not going to be able to do it. But having him on the deal, not only from broker's perspective but also from like a lending perspective, because the lenders will also want to see that you're qualified to operate the business because they're lending the money to you and then to the property. And then honestly, I think the biggest benefit is kind of just like giving us the confidence that hey, we can actually like do this and we can run this business. If you get into trouble, we have someone to look to, who brings a wealth of experience, to be able to go through it, because it's never going to be linear. You're going to have ups and downs, and having someone who can kind of advise you, guide you through that ups and downs, I think it's tremendously helpful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For anyone who's listening, whether you're doing a hotel, commercial, or getting your first flip or whatever, I think to Alex's point, it's really good to just partner with someone who has experience. Even if that means you get a lower cut of the profit or anything like that, I think the experience that you get and the confidence you get from the first deal is probably the most important thing. And so I highly recommend that. I'm definitely gonna be something I'm going to try and do myself, but I appreciate you sharing all that. So maybe going back to the brokers and how you found them, what was the easiest way to like go about finding these people to contact? Were you just going on Google and then like looking at a hotel and then trying to get a contact of the owner directly? Is there specific software you're using to get a hold of these brokers? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we had a virtual assistant living in the Philippines who put together the list of brokers, that are in the area of our interest. So we were looking at all the brokerage firms along the SoCal, all the way up to NorCal, kind of the coastal area. So I think we use like the zip codes and things like that to be able to locate where the brokerage firms are, where these brokerage firms have listings. Because just because you're not in SoCal area doesn't mean that you don't have a listing, in the area that you're interested in. So kind of doing a zip code, and whether it be Google, Crexi, LoopNet, or there's some other paid ones, that may be a little bit challenging to get subscription to if you're not a big institutional investors or real estate operator. But that's plenty enough to be able to find those information. Or reversely, you can look to see who has what listings across the area that you're interested in, get a list of those, call them about the listing that may or may not be interesting to you, but still make the relationship, still introduce yourself, tell them what you're looking for, tell them what your buy box is, and then always follow up with your email so that they have your information, on their email, and then follow up with them every 2 months, 3 months, whatever the right cadence is for you. For us, that was a mixture of all those things that we did. The one that we ultimately bought and closed on, it was just a random Google search. The broker's firm was in Santa Barbara. And we're just like, I was just making a list from all the way from San Francisco down to the Central Coast down to LA, and somewhere along the way, caught my net, and it became on my radar. And then ultimately made the first contact and conversation.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't think it's luck. I think it's lots of being in the right time, or being in the right place, the right time, and just obviously lots of reps and lots of work, which you guys obviously did. So you said it took you
Yeah.
several months to get this deal. What was the details of the deal? Where is it located? How much did you get it for? All that jazz.
Sure, sure. So it is in the area called Solvang, California. If you're in SoCal or NorCal, you should be familiar with the space. It's a nice little Dutch town that is always voted as the number one small town in the West Coast. And I think there's a voting going on right now, actually. So it's a really nice, cute area. A lot of weekend travels. A lot of folks are traveling from the coastal areas to stop by. To It's a really slow. There's a wine country. There's a lot of just you feel at peace if you're when you're in town, which is a very big attraction for a lot of people traveling to Solvang. But when it comes to the actual deal specifics, though, we bought our deal at 5.9 million purchase price. That included a hotel and also duplex that happens to be on the same lot. Um, the hotel has 24 units. So duplex has 2 units. So technically it's 26 doors or 26 units. And we were able to do some seller finance. We were able to carry out some paper that our previous seller already had. And the rest we were able to raise through capital, and also some debt that we got through the private lending.
Got it. Okay. Seller finance is something that I hear a lot in the commercial space. If people don't know what seller financing is, what is that, and what's the benefits of that versus like going through a traditional, getting a big loan from a big bank?
Yeah, so seller finance, I think the easiest way to think about it is that the seller is becoming a bank that is lending money to you. So instead of going to a Chase or Bank of America or any other lenders that are out there, you're directly dealing with the seller. So there's not a lot of paperwork involved. You can typically get the deal done. It's basically a promissory note that the seller is issuing to you as a buyer. There are terms, and it's ultimately up to you what terms you want to agree on. Typically speaking, those terms are better terms than the traditional or SBA or private lending that you get, which is a very big benefit of a seller carrying the note for your deal. It also, I think there's also a lot of intangible benefits because now that the seller has skin in the game, after the transaction close, seller will continue to care about the property. If you got any issues going on with the property, then he or she is more likely to pick up your phone than otherwise not. So it becomes more of you become kind of a same team after the transaction close versus if you don't have any seller finance, then you basically just go kind of separate ways, and you may or may not see the seller anymore. So to me, it's one of the most preferred way to getting the financing done. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits around. You don't have to pay any lender fees or anything like that because it's a paper that you buyer just have with the seller. So there's a lot of benefit, not only from time, also complexity. A lot easier to get seller financing done, other than some negotiations that you may have to do with the seller. And then they will also come, not always, not 100%, but most likely they'll come in a second position next to the primary loan they have. So, from your perspective, the risk is lower, other than having one kind of big lender that's carrying the entirety of the loan that you may have.
Yeah, seller financing seems like the golden nugget for sure if you can make it a deal that works, whether it be in commercial or residential, because the terms are very flexible. You're able to do whatever you want, and it makes it very enticing kind of for everyone that's involved because not only do you get to make out terms that are great for the seller, they can pretty much avoid any big like capital gains tax things that may happen if they sell the property for a huge lump sum, and then they'll be able to potentially get guaranteed income for however long you guys have that contract for. So definitely seems like a
Yeah.
super solid thing. So once you guys get into the actual deal and go into contract, you said you guys have to raise some capital. What did that look like, and
Mhm.
how much did you guys have to raise?
Yeah, we raised 3.1 million total. Um, some of it went to the 20% down payment we made on the property. Some of it went to our construction portion of the capital that's required. I know a lot of folks go out there get a construction loan, in the form of debt. But given that it is our first deal working on it, we wanted to lower our risk profile as much as possible, not leverage it as much as possible. But even though that meant we, as a general partners, giving out some equity to the folks coming into the deal, because that meant that we are going to have less debt payment on a monthly and a yearly basis, especially when as we get through the renovation phase of the cash flow will be volatile. We don't know. We had a plan in terms of how long renovation was going to take, but you typically it always takes longer than you anticipated. So given all
Always.
of those, we wanted to just always, right. So we wanted to just play safe a little bit. And after maybe the first deal, we'll look to have maybe combination of the equity as well as the debt for the next like funding the next construction and renovation for the next deal. But we exclusively funded renovation through equity, so that's where the bulk of the money came in. And then some of the other costs included closing fees and lender fees and some of the other fees that are included getting the deal done.
Got it. Okay. So did you and all your partners, did you guys each say, "Hey, I'm gonna each raise like 500,000," or did you guys kind of just go in like, "Let's just see what we can do"?
Yeah, so we all had a goal of what we thought we can raise. Obviously, everyone has different network and different background. What was also interesting and challenging at the same time was that it was everyone's first time raising, and it was everyone's first hotel, except for this one partner who's done it multiple times. I think he was comfortable with certain number that he was committing to. But the rest
Hmm.
of us, we really just didn't know. Like, it could be this, or it could really be on the other hand. So, had a very big variability of the range in terms of what we thought we can do. So, we kind of took the best guess in terms of what we all could bring to the table. And then, we were just updating each other every week, every day in terms of, hey, like I'm having X, Y, Z conversation. This one looks good. This one is dead. This is what my updated expected capital looks like. Are we short? Are we over? Do we need to bring on another partner? So those are very constant and fluid conversation we had on a day to day and a week to week basis. It was definitely nerve wracking, like, because asking money, and we did friend and family run really. So we didn't go out seek institutional money or anything like that. So essentially, even though it's not asking for money from your friend and family, it kind of is, especially for the first one, because a lot of them are really investing because of you. Yes, they have to be bought into the hotel, but a lot of them are investing because of you. So
Hmm.
it's on your shoulders to be able to really not let them down, and make sure that you're carrying out your responsibility as a general partner on behalf of all the partners and limited partners slash investors who came into the deal. um, and we were constantly looking for opportunities and other ways to, hey, like if you're not able to raise XYZ, like these are some of the options that we have. Most notable option that we were likely going to explore was opening up from friends and family round to be able to raise through outside of the friends and family. It's called 506, converting from 506B to 506C. And that also meant that we can, market our deal to the public. We don't have to have previous relationship with our friends and family, which is one of the restrictions that you have if you do 506 and 506B. So we were ready to flip it to 506C. It did require some paperwork. You do have to have a SEC documents for all of this because you are raising security. Basically, you're issuing security to the investors. But yeah, we basically had already talked to our lawyers, and we had kind of a drop dead date in terms of, hey, if you don't get to whatever money that we need to get to by this date, we're gonna seriously start thinking about converting into 506C, and go out and raise capital otherwise.
Got it. Did a lot of the people that you contacted directly, did they know that you were doing this stuff beforehand, or was it kind of just like completely out of the blue? Hey, I'm looking to raise money for a hotel, and people were like, I don't even know you're looking for hotels. Like, what did those conversations look like, and what were some of the biggest, I guess, challenging conversations that you had?
Yeah, so I mean that's a great question. Obviously, a lot of my close friends knew that I was hoping or I was hustling to get a deal under contract, and I was keeping them up to date on my progress. But a lot of I would say like 80% of the people that I reached out to, maybe 90%, it was my first time telling them, hey, like I'm raising capital for a hotel. And like, whoa, you're doing what in what? You're raising money for what? Because they all kind of knew me from my previous like corporate life or my previous life where when I lived in Montreal and before moving to LA. So that was interesting. And also at the same time, one of the biggest lessons learned was, and this is, for everyone, all the partners who raised capital in our deal was that, hey, we should have known the world or, our network know sooner that we're doing XYZ. So really building in private versus building in public. And I've always been like, hey, I'm just gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna, build my own product. I'm gonna let the world know once I feel comfortable with the product. But that also made it somewhat challenging because no one knew that I was building this product that I was building in this product in a sense of building, hospitality, buying a hotel is what I call a product in this case. But yeah, so that definitely took a bit of conversation. Definitely took some explaining to do. But everyone was pretty receptive, and especially if there are people that knew me more closely than not, they kind of knew my work ethic and who I am as a person. So less questions about that, but more questions about the hotel itself. Versus on the other hand, maybe someone that I haven't talked to for I don't know 10 years, and I still should still reach out to them, right? But they had no idea what career I was having, what W2 I was having, whether I have experience in real estate. So that took a lot of bit more explaining to do. On the other hand, so now that at least like folks around me know that I have this hotel I'm operating, I'm renovating, I'm sharing regularly. I'm hoping the next one is going to be a little bit easier conversation than the first one.
Definitely, I definitely think it will. I think the first one is always the hardest. And to your point about building in the public, I think it's very important. Something I'm trying to do also is just be very, very active on social media. Um, I think a lot of people have this fear that they need to wait until this thing is done before they share this thing, like product or whatever. But I think if you can go through just like the day to day things and just showing, I'm just now starting to look for a deal. This is what it looks like. I think that also can make it very relatable to the people who are just starting out. And so I think that's something that a lot of people can really benefit from. But do you think
I agree.
having done it now, it would be beneficial to start raising capital or at least have these conversations earlier as opposed to like right when you have a deal under contract?
Yeah, I really do think so. It doesn't like, and, you can do it in a way that where you're not coming off wrong. Cause I think a lot of people don't want to do it because they don't want to come off as making empty promises. That certainly was my fear, right? Like I'm going to tell everyone that I'm going to buy this hotel and but I don't know when I'm going to do it, whether I'm going to be able to do it. But you kind of have to just like believe in yourself and you have to be committed enough to be able to do that too. But at the same time, like you can tell them, hey, like I'm just sharing my progress. I'm just, prospecting right now. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm learning. Versus, hey, I'm going to buy a hotel in 6 months. And if I don't do it, I'm going to be a failure. So that's just a different messaging that you can get it out to the world. So, as far as sharing to the rest of your network and everybody else that one is after having done it and you can kind of share what you have done so that you can hopefully, kind of pave the way a little bit to others who are trying to do the same thing. Versus on the other hand, if you're doing it for the first time, again, like you can be transparent and say, hey, like I am doing what I'm trying to do. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing. I'm just sharing my progress. And I think The second, this kind of second messaging, if you're doing it for the first time, can resonate a lot well with the folks who are trying to do it or who are itching to get in, but just haven't had the conviction to get started.
Got it. Okay. Love it. Well, thanks for sharing all the information. It's very, very valuable. So going back to the hotel now, I think one thing that scares me is just like once you acquire this asset, running it and doing all the operations is a whole nother ball game. And so what
Yeah.
did that look like for you guys once you actually finally got it under your ownership? How has it been operating it and your experience overall?
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right in that. I think once we close the deal, that's really just half of the battle. Probably not even half of the battle, right? Because especially if you're gonna hold the asset for 5, 7+ years, it takes you 4 to 6 months to close, but you have to operate it for 5, 7+ years to run it. So for just pure time scale perspective, you're gonna need a lot. You're gonna need to put a lot more effort into it after you're closed. Now, so
Hmm.
that's where I think collective experience and also having the right partner. And when I say partner, not only the general partners who are operating, but also all the vendors and outside partners and consultants that you can get help with to kind of fill the gap in terms of where you may not have expertise in to be able to successfully run the business, right? So, for example, you're likely not going to be doing the bookkeeping and do the CPA stuff yourself unless you're a CPA because
Yeah.
that is the expertise that you don't a lot of people do not have. I happen to be a CPA, but I don't practice it anymore. But I would not claim that I know how to do commercial real estate tax filing and all the K1s and stuff like that. Because now you're not only dealing with your money, but you're also dealing with your friends and family who trusted you to put their money into the deal. So you have all these like fiduciary responsibility, if you will, to be able to really look out after not only yourself, but really putting the investors first mindset. So you'd really want to put the best team in place. So in our case, one of the, again, like the partner who's been, in the hospitality space last 20+ years, he's got 8, 9 hotels already. Maybe he's up to 10. I can't even count how many he has right now. Um, but yeah, no, him on the deal, and also him bringing his own investor base to the deal. That helps a lot in terms of again, like that expertise is there if we need it, and he's always going to be guiding us and advising us throughout our journey. And that having a properly managing company, I think, is key, especially if you have all the other things that you're trying to manage. Because if you do not, it is a full time job. Like you're going out there, you're operating yourself, which I think could be a career for some of us and for many of us. But that wasn't the model that we were looking for in terms of how we are operating the business. So we as a general partner, we wanted to make sure that we find the best property management company that is suitable for running our hotel on a day to day basis. So it does two things. One, you're not only gaining a lot of the time that you need for yourself to work on other things, but also number two, you find someone who's practically much better than you in terms of running day to day. So you are optimizing the operations and getting the most revenue you can get. And also, managing all the day to day operations, leave it to the expert who can do it. So that's another one. And then probably the marketing vendor is, a third kind of category of the outside help that we are getting. That we didn't necessarily do a lot of marketing on the hotel last year, mainly because we are only renovating right now. So we didn't necessarily go out and market our hotel before the renovation. But now that we are, fully renovating, our hotel is going to be ready sometime in May. And then we're lining up our different social media and email marketing vendors and all the other marketing vendors that we can tap into for their marketing expertise to be able to really elevate our hotel. And hopefully that converts into more direct booking, higher revenue, and a lot of the costs that we have in place are fixed and they don't really scale proportionally to revenue. So our margin theoretically should also get better as we increase our revenue over time.
Yeah. One thing I really love that you just said is making sure that you hire the right people in places, because otherwise it becomes another full-time job, which I don't think all of us want to do as real estate investors. The whole point of this is to buy back our time and gain financial freedom and time freedom. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Who Not How, but that's something I'm reading right now. And it's just like
Hmm.
focus on
Great book.
finding, instead of finding how to do something, figure out who can do it and who can do it best, because at the end of the
Yep.
day we're probably not going to be the best to run the property or do the marketing or all that stuff. So if you can find someone who can do all that, uh, it's able to allow you to have a lot more of your time and scalability, um, which you may not have been able to get otherwise. So are
I
you
agree.
guys are part? Do you guys have in-house people, or is it all kind of like the short-term model where you guys have another third party, or not third party, but just like guests go and check in themselves?
Hmm. Remote checking your is what you're describing. So
Yeah.
we have what's called a light step model. So we have a full time GM, and also we have a in house maintenance a person. That's basically it for 24 units. It's pretty light for like fully operating a 24 unit, but it's much better experience for us as operator and also for guests who are checking in. Even though we are installing, keyless locks and basically all the same model that the Airbnbs have. So theoretically and technically, none of the guests really should need help to check in and to check out and everything they need. But also another thing is the guest avatar in Solvang is that there's a lot of the older folks traveling to Solvang, and some of them may not be as familiar with technology. They're used to just getting the actual keys, or maybe they need some guidance or help in terms of actually checking in if it's a keypad. So for those reasons, we decided to keep our GM who's a rock star, and that way we have someone on the ground. If something happens, she can go out there troubleshoot it instead of our property management company who needs to get on a flight and get to Solvang. It's a whole thing, right? And because we have a couple of the folks on the ground, now we are also able to build a lot of kind of events and programming around it that requires on-site coordination. So weddings and events and group events and things like that. Where now that we have our GM on the property in the property, she can coordinate with whoever needs to make a visit, maybe doing some sales. She's also going out and talking to different potential partners in the market, whether it be bakeries and musicians and restaurants and things like that, to create more robust program around our property, so that we can direct more foot traffic and people to our property, not only staying guests but different areas, so that it helps with the promotion. And the solving, again, it's a small town, so the words get out pretty quickly. So we want to have our property as kind of the go-to destination, especially during the weekdays, for a lot of the locals to hang out and recommend if they have other people traveling to Solvang or friends and family travel to Solvang. Hopefully our hotel becomes the go-to hotel for everyone traveling outside of Solvang, for someone who's potentially living in Solvang area, for the locals.
I love it. Well, it sounds like a super solid deal. I can't wait to see it in person. What's the name of the rebranded property, and then when's the opening date?
Yeah, it's called the M Solvang right now. It will be rebranded as the Marlow. And the mid-May we're gonna be fully open.
Mid-May. Okay, everyone, make sure you check it out. The Marlow in Solvang, mid-May. I'm super excited. Yeah, amazing. So thank you for sharing all the information. One thing I really want to touch on really quick also is, I know you said you went from hotels and now you're looking at small businesses also. What made you go into the want to pursue small businesses as opposed to just like keep looking for your next hotel?
Yeah. Um, I've done a lot of thinking around how to really engineer my kind of financial life. And then, the conclusion that I got to, and it's not a noble one by any means, but now that I actually have a couple properties and also a hotel under my portfolio, it has, I'm feeling the reality of it is that real estate, especially in the Southern California where housing prices are so crazy expensive, that real estate is great for equity and wealth building. And it is also great for tax benefits. but it is not necessarily so great for cash flow. So
Mm.
really, I think for creating wealth and continue to fuel wealth, you need wealth building, you need tax play, and you also need a constant cash flow. And then so that it can kind of, act as a flywheel. Real estate, and there's really not a lot of assets that check all three boxes. Maybe
Hmm.
there are, some assets that do, kind of mid tier across all the areas. But real estate is great for wealth building, is great for tax purposes, not so great for cash flow, especially today's environment. When the prices are high, right? That's a lot more expensive than 3 years ago. So to supplement what I'm doing in real estate, I needed to figure out and solve the cash flow problem. For until like really last month, the cash flow problem or needs were met by my W-2 jobs, right? So it was more of a, hey, steady paycheck that was coming into pay checking account on a biweekly or monthly basis. But I actually just left my W-2 about a month ago. So
Congrats. Big,
cash.
big, big
Yeah, thank
things.
you. Yeah, it's been exciting and a little daunting at the same time. But I've been able to build kind of a safety net to be able to get through however periods of the month that I need. And also, some of the real estate stuff that I'm doing, I'm getting some income coming out. So my wife works. So it gave me the enough cushion to be able to say, hey, like I've seen enough to be able to do my own thing, and I'm just going to go all in on it. Is what I'm where I am at right now as of like first week of February. So it's been about a month or so. But again, because of that, now I need to figure out more of a cash flow problem. Like I need to solve for my cash flow problem, which is why the small businesses are great. If you buy, there's a lot of small businesses that have been operational, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that have very good profit margin, but that are looking for kind of similar value add that we are doing for the hotel. Honestly, they're outdated technology. They don't do a lot of digital marketing. Maybe teams have been trained for the longest time. So, depending on what the deal looks like, the playbook is similar, but the outcome that you get is going to be a little bit different. From
Mm.
again, like small business is going to be more cash flow problems. Real estate is going to be more wealth and tax play. So trying to create that combination and a balanced approach of different businesses, so that I can continue to do what I've been enjoying doing the last few months or so.
Yeah, I'll get back to the businesses, but I want to touch on really quick you leaving your W two because I'm at the crossroad now where I'm starting to build a side hustle. I kind of say that nursing is my side hustle now, and real estate is my main hustle. Um, what was your mindset on like why you wanted to transition out of your full time job? Because is it something that just pretty much came back down to time, or because why wouldn't you just keep your job and then start building the side business as well as the hotel stuff?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think time is the most precious commodity that you have. So even, I mean, I had the same mindset as you. The last 6 to 9 months of W-2 before I left, I definitely viewed my W-2 as more of a side hustle, right? Like I
Hmm.
was converting from main hustle being W-2, became a side hustle at some point, got to a point where I felt like the side hustle is not necessarily worth it. I'm not really in it for the long term. And once I wasn't in it, like, I just didn't want to do like a half size job and just be able to do
Hmm.
that. So whatever I do, I want to do, you know, I'm not going like maybe 1,000% all the time, but I want to be able to be proud of myself of the work I do, and then I want to make sure that everyone that I'm working with, whether it be W-2 or not, that they're taken care of, and I do what's needed for them. So I was
Hmm.
getting to a point where my side, my real estate, and all the small business acquisition stuff that I was trying to do, it I got to a point where I felt like if I gave it 100% or 1,000%, there is a path to get to where I'm trying to get to in the next 5 years. Whereas W-2, at some point, it wasn't in my 5 year picture. So it also made it pretty clear to me that okay, it's always going to be the side little thing. Well, no, I don't want to call it a little thing, but side thing, that I'm not going to be always 100% bought into. And at some point, you just have to make the call. and decide to do what's right for you and what do you see as an opportunity to capitalize on the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I really commend you. It's very admirable and courageous to see someone do that. It's very inspiring for myself, and yeah, I think it's awesome. And I don't know if you've read the book The Gap in the Gain, but another thing from that book is focus on the 10% that'll drive the most results. And so for this case, in our case, it's like focusing on real estate. And like you said, instead of giving like a half-assed attention to both, I think you're able to see a lot more growth potentially if you're giving it all those 30 to 50 hours you may be putting into your nursing job or your CPA
Uh-huh.
job, and focus all of that on the real estate. Would you agree?
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, it's only been a month. It's cleared up a lot in terms of my mindset and just mind share, but also physically. I can see the benefit of having more time and control over my time, so that I get to dictate what my day looks like. The downside is that it never ends, right? Like, so, if I don't put the work into it, I don't see the outside and the output of, it's a little bit similar, different than W2. Whereas, W2, even if I don't do stuff, maybe here and there, like the will start to, continue to go. But in this case, because I haven't built the system and the people and the process yet, if I don't put the hour into it, there's, it doesn't move the needle. So, I'm in the grind and the hustle phase right now of building my thing. But again, there is a path to get to, kind of the life that I want in the next like 3 to 5 years, as if I continue to, go at it. And one thing I can tell you is that since I left my W2, a lot of things have happened. And maybe it's a coincidental thing, maybe it's an actual universe telling me it was the right thing for me to do. But I got a small business under banking business under LOI. I hired someone, a VA that I've been dreading to hire for the longest time. And then I found another partner who I think would be a good partner for us to buy a small business together. So again, like all these things, once I got committed to it, things are happening. It's honestly pretty fulfilling and fun to see that things are happening. It is still a little bit daunting because I don't know where this is going to lead me in terms of small business acquisition. But having done the hotel, and having that experience, ultimately, I know that it's going to be a numbers game. I know that if I do it consistently, things will happen eventually.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. Just learning to trust the process and that everything will always work out. And just like you said, just the universe just kind of telling you that it's meant to work out this way. So I'm a firm believer in everything's going to work out for you. So I'm super, super excited to follow along with the journey and see all the success that you have. Um, Next episode, we'll get into the business stuff because that's a whole nother thing we can get into. But
Sure.
if you were to give your one piece of advice for maybe someone who is just getting started, maybe doesn't really know exactly what to do, whether it's in hotels, flipping, wholesaling, small business, what's one big piece of advice that you'd give to someone?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me would be that real estate works, right? But there's so many different ways to get it work. And there's 30, 40, 50 different strategies that, if you go to online and all these like gurus talking about different things, they all work. But I think you
Hmm.
have to figure out what works for you. And then you just got to commit to it and do it over a year, right? Do it over, making sure that if you have a W2 family, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but commit to it 1 or 2 hours a day, every day for a year, and then you will see a change.
Hmm.
And too many people don't get started because they don't know where to get started. Just commit to one. Commit to something where you feel like you can do it, where you feel like you're uniquely positioned to do so because maybe your network, your parents, your friends, or maybe someone that can help you guide through the way. And also do the one that has likely the least path of resistance of getting it done. So
Hmm.
if you have no real estate background and trying to buy 100-unit hotel, it might be a little bit challenging. But if you have no experience, maybe buying a single family home, maybe doing a flip, maybe doing a short term rental, you know, do one thing that you think that you can do well. And there's so much resources and people that are out there that are willing to help. And again, just commit to it for a year, and then there, you will see a change in your life.
I love it. Just stick to one thing. It's easy to get shiny object syndrome and just kind of keep bouncing around, but focus on one thing. Give it a few hours every single day for a year or two, and then you'll guaranteed see results. I love it, Alex. You are the absolute man. I know everyone will get lots of value from this episode. If everyone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I am on Instagram s.alex.kang, Kang. I'm also on LinkedIn, Alex Kang.
Sounds good. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. I will put all the show notes and Alex's links in the description below. Looking forward to seeing the Marlowe in May. Everyone check that out also. As always, keep going, keep taking action, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.